Don't press. Oh shit!
Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Yeah, no, fuck it. That's going to be the intro. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast. Where on today's show we're going to be going over the West Ham win on Monday night. We're recording this on Tuesday evening. Craig, you joining me? How are you?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Sorry, I wanted to get my phone so we could have the running order in front of me as well. So call it unprofessionalism. I apologise, but yeah, I'm buzzing after last night.
Yeah, Craig, before we started recording, for those listening and for those watching as well, because you wouldn't have seen it anyway, but Craig has been frantically trying to sort out his background.
Yes.
And we also found out that Craig takes his chair wherever he goes. Do you want to? You're on a different chair now, but Dan noticed when he joined the podcast room or StreamYard, which we used to record on, that he was in a different setting, but the same chair. So Craig takes his chair wherever he goes, apparently. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm organised. I've got the running order, and I'm on the same chair that I normally sit in, if that makes a difference.
It does make a difference. Just before we get going, remember to drop a comment down below with your thoughts around the West Ham game. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on the socials at the Elam Road on Twitter, at Elam Road Pod on Instagram. Tweet of the week. I did a lot of scouring, but I couldn't find any kind of hilarious shouts. But as you'll know, if you follow the podcast on Twitter, I was searching last night, fucking Brentford, into the search bar. And that does tend to kind of throw out a lot of gold when Brentford win in the fashion that they did last night. And this is from GSB Out. So obviously one of the people that may have been protesting last night at the West Ham game. He said, "We're getting dominated by fucking Brentford at home. Games like this are the ones that tell you we are getting relegated." A couple of questions. Do you boys still do this? Because I think we've spoken about this on the pod before, but I was just reveling in the joy of West Ham tears last night. Dan, were you?
I do. I still do it, especially when we beat one of the bigger teams. But I'm a bit surprised that it's come from a West Ham fan, because we tend to beat them. They're by far the team that we've had the best record against, and we've been promoted. It's not the first time we've dominated against them. But I think it was maybe our most dominant performance, even if it probably wasn't our best result. We've probably beaten them by more in the past, but, you know, we could have won that 5-6-0 any day, and I thought they were shocking, and I thought they'd be better.
Craig, what about you, mate? Do you do it? And were you as surprised as Dan with how bad West Ham were? Because I did a West Ham preview with Jamie, and he was really happy with their performance at Everton in Nuno's first game, and he was even happy with their performance at Arsenal as well. So when we played them yesterday, were you surprised with how shite they were?
Well, that new manager bounce definitely went away very quickly, didn't it? I mean, I think it was 0-0 away at Everton, wasn't it, for them?
1-1.
1-1, sorry. And then they get played off. What seems, you say that, it seems they get played off the park against Arsenal and they lose 3-0. But, I mean, by all reports from their fans, it was probably one of their better performances. And sometimes you go to the Emirates and you know, it is damage limitation for things like that. But last night they were dreadful, and we will talk about how good we were, because we were fantastic, but we should also know about how bad they were. And going into it, you know, it's a team that hasn't won away from home all season a team that hasn't even got a point away from home all season versus a team that hasn't got a point at home all season. So one of them was going to break. And you give them the first 10 minutes, because they came out of the blocks running. They did on fire. They had corner after corner inside the first 2 minutes. But nothing. They offered nothing.
We'll get into it, and we'll get into kind of how much we can take from it. Because I remember having a similar conversation after the United game about how much we can take from the game, considering how poor they were. But I haven't seen us dominate a game like that for a long time. And I put a message in our WhatsApp chat at kind of halftime thinking, when was the last time it was like this? I think maybe Southampton away. But I thought we were more dominant last night than we were at Southampton, to be honest, despite all the goals. But it was just one-way traffic the whole time. Let's get into it. We've kind of already touched on it. Dan, initial thoughts.
Well, I thought, like Craig kind of alluded to, I thought first 5-10 minutes, West Ham were actually decent. And I thought, you know, is this going to be one of those games where we sit back a bit, we try and go long, we give them the ball, and, you know, repeat the pattern of most of our away games so far. But after we got over that initial period, we seemed to have a flurry of corners and throw-ins, and then it kind of never stopped. At one point, we just had, I'm sure we had a flurry of corner and throw-ins for about 10 minutes. And it never stopped. And, I thought West Ham would get better second half. Nuno's beaten us once this season already. I thought they made really strange subs. When I heard they were making 3 subs, I was like, 3 subs. And then when I realised who it was, I thought that's just really strange, bringing 3 defensive players on. Second half, they seem to have just had a massive hole in midfield. And they allowed us to control the game, which we're not normally very good at. And I feel like they made it easy for us because they had like Souček and then Rodriguez in the middle on their own, surrounded by Damsgaard and Henderson and Yarmo. And of course, then we were able to get on the ball. And if you can get someone like Damsgaard on the ball more, which we probably haven't been able to do in recent weeks, then you see how good he is. Again, Yarmo, we're going to talk about it, probably his best game for Brentford. Henderson, same as usual. But, we had that perfect mix. We could go direct at times, but we could also play through. And that's what we've been saying has been the main thing that we haven't done well enough this season. In certain games where we can take control a bit more, I felt we did it here. I felt West Ham made it really easy for us. But, the only thing you can complain about is that we didn't score more, and perhaps at half-time we had that same feeling that we might not win because we haven't taken the chances.
Craig, what did you think about the lineup? Because there was definitely a few eyebrows raised at one of the only change. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't the only change at the defense, because Ajer came in at left back, and before the game, do you know what, that should have been tweet of the week, because even before the game there were people saying Andrews has to go for playing Ajer at left back, but that was one of his better games in a Brentford shirt, I thought.
Yeah, easily one of his. I mean, I don't think Jared Bowen had a sniff the whole game down that side, and Somerville had a couple of mazy runs, but it turns out that while he's running, he's unable to kick the ball. So that's interesting. But yeah, there was so much of it, wasn't there, on social media beforehand? Like, what's he doing? He doesn't know what he's doing. Very clearly, something throughout the week has shown him that Christopher Ajer should be starting. And if you're going to go to a back 4, you're not going to displace Michael Coyote. We've seen Keane play further forwards this season, so there's a possible position there. With Hickey being injured as well after the international break, and Rico is very clearly not at full strength. And that's the only thing that I can think of as to why, for the beginning, Christopher Ajer would have been at left back. But he completely shut up anybody who had any doubts about him playing at left back from throughout that game. It was probably Dan already said it's Yarmo's best game. It was probably one of Christopher Ajer's best games in a Brentford shirt as well, easily.
What about Rico, Dan? Because I have seen a little bit of noise on Twitter about him being on the bench and Ajer starting ahead of him at left back. Less so with Keane Lewis-Potter, because we know that he can play up top as well. But I haven't thought that Rico has been too much of an issue this season. I think he's not back to his best fully. There's been glimpses of it, but it is it damning for his future potentially, if that's where Keith Andrews sees him, if he's second choice to a right back?
Well, it is from his perspective. You're looking at someone using centre back or a right back playing in your position. Of course, he's going to be looking at that, thinking, maybe he doesn't really fancy me. I was thinking before the game, was it almost a disguised back 5? So like when West Ham have the ball, Ajer goes to centre back, and then you have like Dango or Sharda dropping in as a wing back. It turned out we had the ball most of the time. So if they put us under sustained pressure, it'd been interesting to see more whether we would have gone into that shape. But it's a very interesting one, because the other thing is obviously Bowen's their best player. The player who plays in that area of the pitch is the one up against Bowen. Did he think that Christopher Ajer would do the best job out of all the options against Bowen? But then you think of Rico Henry's strengths, and it is probably that 1v1 defending. Mm-hmm. So it's strange with that. The only thing I would say with Ajer is even when he did get high on that left-hand side, he did look to come back on his right foot.
He was getting high on the left-hand side. I didn't see that.
Okay, occasionally.
Was he just sparking up a zoot or something? I didn't see that.
when he was
I'm
next to the
joking.
box. I know, I didn't know what to say. He would try to go back onto his right foot, whereas Rico Henry probably wouldn't, but he'd probably put in a fairly shit cross instead. So
typically Rico,
there's benefits of both. I still think Rico Henry may get some games. Obviously, I still think it's Aaron Hickey's position ultimately to lose. But yeah, I did well, and from Rico Henry's perspective, I will probably get injured at some point soon, and if he's not back, then he might get his chance. But I agree. I suspect he'll play against Grimsby in the cup, and when he has played this season, he's not let out of place.
You mentioned about Christopher Ayer being able to step in, and us possibly going to a back five with Dango or Sharda stepping in at that wing back position. From where I was, at times it looked like we had gone to a back three where Nathan Collins and Sepp had been split a little bit, and it was actually Henderson that was in between the two of them, because he was the one that was picking the ball up in the middle and then playing it out to be it Coyote on the right-hand side or Christopher Ayer on the left, or pinging them balls forward, which is what he likes to do. But in the same way that Christian Norgard used to drop back and sit between those two centre-backs and almost create a back three so that the others can push forward, that's what it looked like at times with Henderson dropping in. Now, like you said, we had a lot of the ball, so he didn't really have to do that. And we kind of, at times, was defending with just two players because Ayer was getting higher up, shall I say, instead of the way you said it, so that Mike doesn't make it.
It was getting higher up. Sorry.
Higher up.
Higher up. Sorry, it was there, wasn't it? And then Coyote could get up. He could get up higher on that right-hand side as well. It meant that at times we was just defended with two players because they didn't have a striker on the pitch. They had no attacking threat. So we didn't need to have those players back. And like I say, at times you'll look, and once we're in their final thirds, the two defensive players that we've got are Sepp and Nathan Collins, somewhere around the halfway line, and then just in front of them, pulling the strings, is Jordan Henderson. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. When we had the ball, we kept the ball, we won it back quickly, and we just used the space that they afforded to us, especially with their slow midfield. Space was just constantly open. And how it's funny that 35-year-old Jordan Henderson made them look slower. And I mean, again, I think this is 8 games we've played this season now. I want to apologize again to Jordan Henderson. I think I will do it every game he plays this season because I've eaten my words.
Jordan Henderson's game in numbers, 87 touches, which was first, 69 accurate passes, which was first, 12 passes into the final third, again first, 6 recoveries first, and 9 defensive contributions, which was third in the game. He continues to prove his worth and prove Craig wrong, which we love.
I'm so happy to be proved wrong.
Should we talk a little bit about the goals? We mentioned it was domination from minute 1. Could have been 2, 3 before Thiago's opener. He missed his sitter about 10 minutes before, but then he had the bit between his teeth. He obviously gets one that's disallowed before half time. But just breaking down the goal, Dan, Sharda's touch, is inconsistent at the best of times. But credit where credit's due, because the ball forward from Yarmo, I think it was, he takes that down really well. Obviously, there's a bit of a mistake from Kilman in there as well. But seeing a good touch from Sharda is rare, and it really was one, I thought.
First touch was really good. I'll give you that. I thought he struggled to get out of his feet again after that, though. And I thought the chance almost passed him by. I thought initially he could go on to shoot himself. He was a bit slow to get out of his feet. If you watch it in slow-mo, it looks like he takes 2 or 3 attempts the second time to actually get it under control. So, the good and the bad of Sharda, I guess, there. But he did the right thing. He played it across to Thiago. And it was quite similar to our goal at West Ham last year in that it almost didn't go over the line. It was a bit scrappy. It was almost saved. Obviously, Sharda scored last season when the goal line technology had to step in. This one was a little bit more over the line, but again, Areola did his best to save it. And if that hadn't have gone in, Thiago, especially having missed the earlier one, he would have been forgiven to start thinking it's not his day. But yeah, really, really good. And I thought Thiago was really unlucky with the offside goal because that was actually a really, really good finish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame that he was so marginally offside that you could, I hate those ones where it's just centimetres and from the away end, obviously you wouldn't have been able to tell whether that was offside. It didn't look offside in real time. So just really unfortunate with that one. And obviously that would have given us a bit of breathing space and the least we deserved.
It's a stupid rule because he and the defenders are running away from the goal. How does he gain an advantage by running away from? I know the rules are if you whatever he is offside on by a margin of a stud, but it seems like a silly rule, doesn't it? Because how has he gained an advantage by a stud's width being offside when the defender wins the header anyway? It's a strange one, isn't it? And I know that by fact he is offside because he impeded defender. The defender does win the header, but come on, man. It reminds me of when we lost 3-2 away at Fulham and we was 2-0 down and we'd come back to 2-2 and Ivan Toney scored.
Yeah.
And he was running literally the opposite way to the defenders, turns and scores, and that's offside. He's literally running away from goal. It's like, oh man. But yeah, that chance that he missed where he hits the bar as well. You see so many players missing ones like that where they're stretching for it. But when you're like 3 yards away from goal, it's
he had to score. He had to score there. But
if you look at that goal, alongside the goal that he scored against United and was told one's onside and one's offside, you'd never think it was the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam Huff on Twitter, because we've opened it up for some questions on Twitter, which we'll get to kind of throughout and later on in the pod. He said, can you talk about your reaction to the offside lines taking away Thiago's second goal? Personally, don't think it would have been offside if we had semi-automated VAR and his head went to Mars when they announced 2 minutes into the second half that they got the technology back. Just in general, kind of on VAR, someone asked me this the other day. If like in terms of how we could change it, if it was going to be changed, I'm more in the camp of VAR to be used for offsides and not for it to be used for anything that's subjective in terms of like fouls and stuff like that. But is it not like you just said, Craig, if he's offside, he's offside? Do you know what I mean?
For the
is it the rule? Is it the rule that needs to be changed as opposed to the execution of it?
But does he really gain an advantage over a defender based on an inch, based on a stud? And if they're running the other way, my dad will be watching this and he'll be thinking it should be torsos, and that's what he thinks. If your body is in front of the defender, then fair enough. Because I'm a vertically challenged gentleman. I'm not very tall. Okay, so I'm not very tall, which means if I run against you, Mike, your stride is going to be longer than my stride is. And if we're at one point running side by side, but your stride is longer than mine, how does your stride being longer mean that you should be offside? It means you're just quicker than I am. Do you know what I mean?
No, I understand.
If we're running side by side, but your toe is further forward than mine is because your stride is longer than mine, how is that an unfair advantage? That's just you being quicker, you having, longer pace.
It's just an advantage, yeah. It's just an advantage. I know what you mean.
I get that with the rule. I mean, to answer the question, I don't think in terms of the technology not being available, I don't think they got it wrong in terms of the factual decision. I think, they used to do the lines, semi-automated is only fairly new. They're used to doing the lines. And usually when they do the lines wrong, I think which happened once or twice, we found out about it and there's been nothing. So I think it was the correct decision factually, but I agree that, you don't really want to see goals like that being given offside.
Nobody thought it was offside. Nobody, not even the West Ham players thought it was offside.
Dan, just as a quick side note, you have now mentioned Aya getting high and referees doing lines on the pod. What are we doing here? What kind of pod is this?
I'd also like to play against Craig in goal, given his height.
Okay, there was no need for that.
That's why he's got a chair to make him look tall. Okay.
All right.
Dan, Dan, let's talk about Thiago, because 5 goals in 8 appearances. Are you
Fans hate
convinced?
it.
Are you
Fans
convinced
are
yet?
hating it.
Are you convinced yet? In the same way that
Oh,
Jordan
yeah,
Henderson is
no.
proving Craig wrong.
He's definitely convincing me. I think I'm not so concerned about all the goals. His general play is so much better now than it was the first few games this season. So much better. He caused them so many problems, taking away the goal. Because you could argue in front of goal he didn't have the best night, because he probably could have scored 3 or 4, and he ended up with 1. But his general play, the problems he caused the defenders, he is being more of a handful. He is. He's someone that you can see now that defenders don't want to play against. I didn't think that was the case earlier this season. So, maybe it just did take him a little bit longer to adapt and to obviously recover from the injury fully, and to maybe trust his body again, and be able to move how he does. I think in the last few minutes you see him flag a little bit still, which, maybe
I think that's fair though, because he runs himself into the ground. Yeah.
And that's completely fair enough. And, it'd be good to have maybe someone who could come on for the last few minutes if needed, but we don't have that at the moment.
Where was our 90th minute Fabio Carvalho sub this week?
Yeah,
if he's run himself into the ground for 90 minutes, that's where you bring him on.
Jensen's taking his slot and getting the last minute goals instead.
We'll talk a little bit about Fabio Carvalho, because I think someone on Twitter has asked about him. So we'll talk about him in a bit. But I think you're absolutely on the money with Thiago. Every aspect of his game is improving. I think it was just the goals. As soon as the goals start to come, the confidence starts to come. But he is a massive passion merchant. But like his celebration with Keith, there is something so nice when a player runs over to a manager and gives him a hug. I remember when Andre Gray scored against Watford. Am I right with that one? Yeah. And
they announced Warburton was going to leave, right? Yeah.
And all of them ran over to Mark Warburton, and it was like the most wholesome celebration you could ever think of. But even Thiago in front of the away end at the end of the game.
Benrahma when he ran to
Thomas Frank against Hull City.
I think it was Hull. It was just after Benrahma's dad had passed, wasn't it?
Yeah. But there is something really nice about those kinds of celebration. But I think Thiago is a massive fan favorite. Having said that, what are we thinking at half time? Given the amount of shots we had, 15 in the first half. All of them inside West Ham's penalty area, I think. How are your nerves, Craig? Because we were all saying in the group chat, with this ending one way.
Well, honestly, my first thought was, I wonder what the odds of West Ham winning this are.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those games, and maybe under Thomas Frank, or I don't even know, under Thomas Frank, it was one of those games, having supported Brentford for long enough, I'm thinking, God, we're going to lose this. We're going to lose this 0-0. It is 2-1. It's quintessentially Brentford that we smash them in the first half, only be 1-0 up, and come out and play like we did under Thomas Frank, where we would concede in 2s all the time. And it just seemed inevitable. But I think it was the start of the first half. West Ham had like 3 corners in 3 minutes, or 4 corners in the first 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got a corner inside the first minute of the second half as well. And I'm thinking, okay, we've come out on top again here. But there are so many chances in the first half. And I think, wasn't it, I sent you a fact as well, and you'd a stat, and you sent me one as before. It was the most shots in a half of football since Burnley, when we beat Burnley 3-0 in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows how on top we were. But normally, and a lot of people would agree with me, we would get punished for not being further ahead. But because West Ham were crap, they were awful. We didn't need to be that far ahead because they had no threat to punish us. Now, next week when we play Liverpool, we won't be that lucky. If we go in at 1-0 up, and we have been on top, and we've had chances, and we're not putting them in the back of the net, we could get punished against someone like Liverpool.
Yeah.
But West Ham, when we're offering nothing, I was, like very many Brentford fans, watching on the telly or in that way and going, "Oh God, we could have been 3 or 4-0 up here. They're going to come back and bite us in the arse." But that second half performance was just as good as the first.
I mean, yeah, the domination completely continued in the second half. I want to talk about Sharda's performance in general, because I feel like we criticize Sharda quite a lot, but we do have to give him his flowers. But even sort of the domination, our set pieces yesterday, I don't know how we didn't put away one of those corners, one of those throw-ins, because there was free header after free header after free header. that is going to be a big aspect of the Liverpool game, you'd imagine, because they're going to dominate the ball a bit more. We're probably going to go back to typing that we're going to see far less of the ball. But Sepp had a good chance. Collins had a good chance. Damsgaard got on the end of a throw, I want to say. There were so many chances from set pieces that we need to be burying. But yeah, the domination continued the second half. We'll talk about Coyote's performance and then Sharda afterwards, because he created 7 chances overall, 6 from open play last night, Dan. We're talking about players having their best games in a Brentford shirt. We'll talk about Yarmo in a bit. I mean, Coyote has got like quite a catalogue of best games in a Brentford shirt, but that was definitely up there.
I mean, if you, again, like we spoke about it earlier this season, but the fact he's 21 years old, Yarmo's 21 years old, we have got some talent in this team who are only going to get a lot better. I think, if you include the chances we created from his long throws last night as well, then I can't imagine how many chances he created, because he's insane. He is still a little bit erratic in his in his own third sometimes. Yeah. He likes to try and take on people in maybe not the best positions, because if he loses it, then we could get punished. But, you don't really want to completely take that away from him, because when it comes to him going forward, that move he did before he crossed it to Sharda, when Sharda hit the bar, just to get away from the defender and put across him with his left foot, I think it was. Mm-hmm. It just shows the quality he has. And, he's our best fullback, I think. He's got explosive plays. He's good 1v1 defensively, when maybe I wasn't completely sure on that at first. And he will take risks, and he will do things like that, and he will create chances. So there's not a single area of his game which you say is not up to scratch yet. I think he just needs to be a bit more clever when he does certain things, which will come with age. But yeah, I think after Damsgaard, he's probably my favourite player.
Big shout. Let us know in the comments if that's a general consensus. I do think he's definitely one of the fan favourites, like Igor Thiago. Here's a stat for you, Craig. In tonight's match against West Ham, Michael Coyote became the first Brentford player to create 6 chances from open play in a Premier League match, whilst his 7 chances created overall was the joint most by an Italian player on Opta record since 03-04. That's a good stat. That's a joint most chances created.
I really thought you was going to say who was that player. I thought you was going to put me under pressure and say who was that player. I've got no idea.
I deleted that part of the stat because Opta post that, so I can find out for you. But if anyone wants to hazard a guess, go for it.
If anybody wants to hazard a guess, let them go for it. I don't know. Zola, maybe. I don't know.
It wasn't Zola. One more, Dan. Do you want to say? It's actually not in the stat. It's a joint most with Sandro Tonali for Newcastle. But if anyone can find out, let us know in the comment section, because I haven't got a Scooby in terms of 03-04. Italians in 03-04. I was only 5.
Yeah. Brentford posted something today about Yarmo, saying Yarmo's only 21 years old.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about Yarmo.
Coyote's only 21 years old as well.
But on the topic of Coyote, he was the one that provided the chance for Sharda when he whacks it off the bar. Dan, I really, really wanted Sharda to score last night, because, like I just mentioned, we talk about him so much. But when he's running in at his fullback, which I don't think he does enough, he is a real problem with his leap, the way he gets off the ground. He can bring Thiago into play. The only thing missing, I thought, from his performance last night was a few more good touches, but you can say that in every game. But it was that goal, I thought.
Yeah, and I don't think he did a lot wrong when he hit the bar. I think that was, again, just an unlucky one. He got up there, he got good connection on it. It would have gone in. The keeper weren't going to save that. It's just a little bit unfortunate and kind of symptomatic of how our day was going up until that point, just creating lots of chances, not managing to score. I feel like he's a player that plays well when we play well as a team. And if he's on the ball a lot, and if he has more space to run into, he's better. I still want to see him step up when we really need it, when we're in a tighter game, or we've not been playing that good. We really wanted him to be the one this season to step up in the absence of Brian and Wissa. And, really at the moment, in terms of goals, it's Thiago that's doing that and not him. So I still want to see more from him game to game, especially in the games where we're not the dominant team. And we just need a bit of magic from him, because again, we said before, he's got everything you need to be really, really good. He trains every day, just work a little bit on details, just better touches in particular. And
There's one thing for Kevin Schade that's really bugging me from last night, and I'm sure a few people will be thinking of exactly the same moment. I think that we're like 3-on-2 or even 3-on-1.
What are you going to say?
Damsgaard is busting a gut to get past him. Thiago is sort of around the back post area. And rather than just dribbling with the ball and keeping the ball and getting closer to goal, he tries an outside of the foot pass, trying to get it to Thiago, it seems, and just passes it straight to the defender. And it's like, just keep the ball. You've got so much pace. If that player's going to dive in, you knock it past him, he's either going to bring you down, you're through 1-on-1, he's going to get sent off, or you're going to get a chance to put the ball in the back of the net. But he just seems that was such a wrong decision to make, that it was like, it summed up his game as to why he didn't get a goal yesterday, because he doesn't always make that decision, but it was painful to watch that one.
Or just give it to Damsgaard, because you know that if he passes it to the left, Damsgaard will probably put a better quality ball to Thiago in the box. That's just what we actually expect, what we expected from that situation, which is a shame. He tried to do something with the outside of his boot. It was a good idea, just not great execution. And if it was Damsgaard, I suspect it probably would have been better execution. But he's got everything he needs, Schade. He just needs to keep working and just get better at those small details, and then his numbers will rocket if he does that.
Yeah, 100%. The problem with Schade has always been consistency, so we hope that comes. Craig Jensen comes on, gets his customary late, well-taken goal. Aya said in his post-match that this bench is the strongest it's been since he's been at the club. Obviously, Jensen providing a little bit of support for that argument. What did you think of the bench? Because, I've got in the running order, and I said before the game, the lack of attacking options, I think it was just Nelson and Carvalho, really. Obviously, if you want to count Lewis Potter in that, there's 3 players. But there's been a lot of noise kind of in the international break as well. Ramel Donovan scoring a worldie against QPR at the Gtech. Gustavo Nunes, I think, played in that game. Reece Nelson was on the bench last night, but didn't feature. You're hoping that when those players come back, there are more options. But just on Donovan, are we going to see him? Because, that was another kind of stick that was being used to beat Andrews with. The fact that we've not seen him, the fact that he was promoted from the B team to the first team. And he's obviously impressing in the B team as well. Attacking options on the bench. Where are you with those?
The only thing that's missing, it feels like, is a clear striker replacement, doesn't it? Because we've seen throughout the season that we've got an abundance of defensive players that we could bring on. Be it Vitaly Janel in midfield, Frank Onyeka in midfield, Ethan Pinnock, KLP, Rico, Aya when he's not playing. We've got an abundance of defensive players and defensive midfielders. It's the going forwards that we always seem to lack. But last night, when you've got, I'm using KLP as an attacker because that's where he came on. He came on, for Dango, wasn't it? And he stayed as a forward player and gets the assist for Jensen's goal. So 2 substitutes combining to put us 2-0 up. When you've got Fab on the bench, Reece Nelson on the bench, and Keane on the bench as your attacking players, the question becomes, who does Donovan replace out of those? Because can you justify spending the money on Fab and then replacing him with a B team player anyway? Can you justify getting a player like Reece Nelson in on loan and then not even putting him in the matchday squad for Ramel Donovan? And then do you replace a utility player like Keane, who could play fullback very well, who could play in those attacking positions very well, for Donovan? So it's probably a really, really good headache for Keith Andrews to have, because if you've got them players to bring in, great, you've got them players to bring in, but it's choosing who to bring in. And if you bring him in, let's keep in mind, you've got to leave someone else out.
I don't really buy this Donovan stuff, because just to say, like, how many times in the past have we had players that have really done well for the B team? None of them have really stepped up, certainly not straight away, to make a big impact in the first team. It's such a different level that he's playing at compared to Premier League football. And I think, the physicality, from seeing him in pre-season, he doesn't look like he's necessarily got that physicality to play at the Premier League right now. That's not a criticism for him. You know, he wasn't really playing much for the Birmingham's first team before we signed him. You know, if he was further ahead in his development, you thought he'd start to get minutes for them in the Championship or League One when, you know, before we signed him. So I do think the best thing for him is probably to start playing, you know, football somewhere in the EFL, build up that physicality. You know, at best, if he does play for us, it's only going to be a few minutes here and there in the Premier League. He seems to have cracked it at B team level. So I just don't think he'd be as good as people think he might be if we brought him in now.
I think the main argument from people is that if we want to change the game, if we're chasing a game, which obviously Andrews hasn't really proved that he can do yet, then we don't have the players to kind of come on and affect a game. But it does piss me off, like the multitude of sticks that are being used to beat Andrews with at times. Donovan, like you said, he's obviously, we're all excited about him, and obviously, you know, he's going to be a good player at some point. But what is he, 18, 19? He's super young. So he's one for the future. And it kind of just feels like, you know, even sort of Benjamin Arthur, when he made that debut in the Cup, there's people saying Andrews needs to give him a chance, and that's another reason why he's not good enough. But it is a little bit confusing when over the international break we're not even playing, and there's people saying that, you know, Andrews has to go because Donovan doesn't get into a match day squad. But he's so young.
The thing is as well, this season, if we look at the Premier League this season, because of how well 2 of the 3 promoted teams have done in the transfer market and have started the season, it's looking like it's one of the most competitive Premier Leagues, especially in the bottom half, that we've had since we've in the 5 years now that we've been in the Premier League. So he's again stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you've got to feel really sorry for him because he's being beaten with a stick for not using these young players, for not getting Romeo Donovan involved, for not getting Benjamin Arthur involved as well, not getting them 2 players involved. But if he gets them 2 players involved and they don't immediately succeed, because that's what football fans expect, you to immediately succeed, he'll then get beaten with a stick for including those players and playing them ahead of someone like Keane, like Fab, like Reece Nelson, you know, like Ethan Pinnock, like Christopher Raya. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place where he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Yeah,
there'll be calls against Grimsby to bring the likes of those players in, but if we bring many of them in, we've all seen before, that's when we lose to teams like Grimsby. So we can't just take these games for granted and think, oh yeah, they'll all come in and we'll make 11 changes and we'll include 3 kids and it will all just click. It's not going to happen. I mean, even Nunes, we don't actually know much about him. We've not seen him play. He's also very young in an entire new continent. You know, I don't necessarily expect him to come in and instantly set the world alight. I thought we would have seen more of Reece Nelson by now. I know he's had a bit of an injury, but, you know, he's played in the Prem before. He's had loads of loan moves. He's ready. He's a player for now. I'm surprised you've not seen him more because I feel like he does have talent and he can impact things a little bit more now.
Yeah, I want to definitely see more of a Nelson going forward. Hopefully hopefully the reason he didn't come on last night was because of that injury and he just wants to keep him match fit. But we've got Popey. We'll talk about some players now. We've got Popey on Twitter asking just how good Yarmo is going to be. Complete performance from him last night. Still only 21, getting the perfect experience alongside Hendo. Do you think he could go right to the top to go full Harry Redknapp? I think it was his best game in a B shirt. What impressed you guys about him last night? Because I just thought he was so dominant.
How many times do you reckon, as a collective, we've said that's his best game in a Brentford shirt?
Yeah, lots.
Lots. But having a player like Jordan Henderson next to him will only do good things for him. It will only take his game to new levels. Having someone who's had the career success that Henderson has had can only be a good thing for him as well. And it seems to be showing. Do I think he's got the chance to go to the top?
I think he does.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we'll rinse United out of 80 million for him in a couple of seasons. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, for sure. If he can play alongside players with experience like Henderson's got for the next season or two, which Henderson is, I believe Henderson's a 2-year deal or one with an extra year, he will continue to grow. He'll continue to develop. By the time he's 20, 24, 25, yeah, I believe he's already on the radar of some of the big six, but he's got a very high ceiling.
More goals and assists, and then he'll be on that next level. I think that's the one thing that we haven't seen much of from him. I think that assist against United for Jensen's goal in the last minute was his first goal involvement for us. So that's what we need to see more of, goals and assists. But if he gets that part of his game, then he's so well-rounded because he does a lot of the other parts of the game really well. And he helps Henderson too because he covers so much ground. And Henderson, might not be able to do that at his age. So to have someone like Yarmo alongside him, I think they really complement each other.
We have another question from Ali Malali on Twitter saying sort of how much can we take from the game because of how bad West Ham were, how good we were. And I want to kind of tie that into an assessment of Keith's game plan because he spoke about it in his post-match on Sky. And he said, we want to be able to be tactically versatile. I don't think we've seen that at all really this season. But last night, whether it was West Ham allowing us to do so, but we were playing through them at will. We were going long when we needed to. Thiago, Ouattara, and Shada are a constant threat. Craig, how it's obviously the answer is a bit of both in terms of how much we can take from it. But it is encouraging to see us have a bit of variety for the first time this season.
I'm sure that so many people are going into this game thinking, "Oh my God, we're going to play a back five. We're away at West Ham. We're going to play a back five." And he kind of saw the lineup and he saw three centre back. Well, thank God they do the lineup the way they do now, actually, because if I'd have seen it in that long list with three centre backs there, I'd have been going, "Oh my God, we're playing a back five." So thank God they do the lineup graphic the way they do now. But there hasn't really been any versatility, has there? And the subs that he's made throughout the season have been ridiculously questionable. And that's what we spoke about, Dan, on the last episode as well. But you can take positives, obviously, from any win. It doesn't really matter. Whether it's Grimsby in the Cup in a couple of weeks or this game now, there are always positives to take from a win. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is or how good the opponent is. What it does for us is it gives us momentum no matter how tricky the next sort of result game is as well. We've still got, I believe we got a couple of, I can't even remember, we got after Man City and Palace, but we've got no easy games in the Premier League this year. A win can only give you confidence, a win can only give you momentum, and we'll take that against anyone, whether it's West Ham, whether it's Liverpool, whether it's Grimsby, it doesn't matter. A win's a win. Positive.
Just on the subs, I do still think, even in this game, Yehor for Damsgaard was still the wrong move. And if West Ham had one chance and put it away in those last 15 minutes, we would have looked at that and thought we were in control of the game. Damsgaard was getting so much space. He was able to drive into that space. We still were only 1-0 up. So surely you leave Damsgaard on, who's much more likely to unlock a defence than bring Yehor on for him. Maybe if we had got another, you could understand it a bit more, but I did still question that sub when it was made because Damsgaard was firing and he's someone who can unlock things for us. And we were still in a position where, if we just give away one chance, like when Henderson almost lost it at the end and had to hack him down for a yellow card, if they had scored from that, you still want your best players on the pitch to try and get that second because we weren't, although we were playing so well that we should have been out of sight, we weren't.
We've got a couple of people on Twitter asking that as well. Gary's asking, are we wasting Damsgaard's talent? He looked well pissed off when he was taken off. Bag of Donuts on Twitter is also asking, I'm going to nitpick. Why do we continue to take Dams off? He wasn't pleased. And Freelander replied to Gary, Ryan on Twitter, saying last night was Damsgaard's best game for us this season. Unlucky not to get the assist for Thiago's second. Assume he was always due to come off after playing 160 minutes for Denmark, which is a good point. Only thing I'd rather see is Fabio coming on and getting game time. Otherwise, we may as well get rid of him. And that also ties into another question, full of questions today, from Ali Malali, who says, is there a future for Fabio? Can't even get on when the guy who plays in his position comes off. Craig, thoughts on that, on the whole Damsgaard Fabio situation? I am starting to feel incredibly sorry for Carvalho because you're thinking that his only opportunity is really going to come in the cup against Grimsby.
Yeah, so we've spoken about Fabio so much recently, haven't we? And you've got to start to feel sorry for him, especially when players out of position are getting in ahead of him. In regards to Damsgaard, to me, it makes total sense. He played, like they just said, 160 minutes over the international break. He's probably the only one I don't know how long Yarmo played for Ukraine, but Henderson obviously didn't hardly play for England. So he's probably the only one that got a substantial amount of football time over that international break. So him coming off doesn't really surprise me. And, we've had success in bringing Jensen on in that position as well this season already. So don't really have any qualms with that. Don't really have too many issues with that. I think that as the season goes on, Damsgaard will be more of a mainstay and won't be subject to those substitutions. But what's getting me is I don't understand still how he's not making many attacking substitutions, because when you've got Fab on the bench, you've got Reece Nelson on the bench, you've got KLP on the bench, and only one. I mean, Thiago ran himself into the ground, and I can't even remember if he got subbed off. I don't think he did, but he ran himself into the ground, and like you said, he's flagging. Once you get to 85 to 90, and he is flagging, and you've got Reece Nelson on the bench, and you've got Fab on the bench, use these players, use the fresh legs. They're tired as well as we are. And that's what's concerning, is the substitute he only seems to make are defensive substitutes, which is funny because obviously Jensen keeps going and scoring in the last minute of games when he comes on. But yeah, is it concerning? A little bit, but at the same time, some of the substitutes he makes, I can understand, but it's the lack of using players like Fab, like Reece Nelson later in games, or even at all.
To answer Ali's question on Fab, I think there is a future for Carvalho, because I don't foresee us keeping Damsgaard past next summer. I assume he's already having a good season, but I assume that there's going to be clubs lining him up for next summer. And if he does go, I'd hope that would open the path for Fab. And like we've said about Brentford signings, it does take 1 or 2 seasons for them to really bed in. And that would be the case for Fabio Carvalho if he was to kind of assume that role once Damsgaard left. However, what he would say in response to that, well, why don't you let me go on loan and go and play some bloody football, because you're so reluctant to bring me on, even when we need a goal. So it is a bit confusing, Dan, because if you're in his shoes, you're thinking, well, you either don't fancy me, or you're not gonna let me go on loan because you need me. Sorry. So where are you with Fab?
He needs to play more. Me and Craig spoke about it last time. I think we added up all the minutes that he'd played since he scored the last minute goal against Chelsea, and it was about 6 Premier League minutes or something like that in total, which is ridiculous. He is one of our players, particularly when we're losing a game. I kind of understand that maybe it wasn't the game against West Ham to bring him on, because if you do bring him on in that midfield, I think he may be more likely to lose the ball in a sloppy manner than maybe the likes of Damsgaard and anyone else you bring on in there. But particularly last few weeks in games where we haven't been winning, where we need a goal, where we need something to come back, Carvalho and Jensen are the 2 players that show that they can come on and make an impact, and a goal-scoring impact. We've had very few attacking players who have been bit part players, but have still got goals with such regularity. And if I'd be interesting to see number of minutes per goal, because I think Carvalho must be up there. Potentially up there with, or even above, someone like Kevin Schade, especially this season. So why don't we give him a bit more time when we need that? Because we know he can do it. He's got the quality to do it. Even if we think his all-round game could do with some improvement, he has shown that he can come on and make an impact on games. And he's not going to improve, and he's not going to gel with the team if we don't play him. And there's been a lot of talk from Thomas Frank and then Keith Andrews about them saying they believe in him and that he's got a big future for us, but they've got to back that up. They've got to back what they're saying up on the pitch by showing faith in them.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think we all want to see more of Fabio Carvalho, and this is something we're missing in training. But he has started games at points, and I don't think he's ever looked. Well, maybe there has been a couple of games where he's looked quite off it, but I just love how he always takes risks on the pitch, and I feel like we lack that apart from Damsgaard. Even when he loses the ball, he's always looking forward, always looking to find the front man, always looking to make a pass or thread the needle. So yeah, more to come from Fab. Hopefully. Anything else we want to touch on before we move on to Liverpool and a couple more questions from the West Ham game? No? Okay.
Carvalho made a good save.
Kelleher did make a good save, and it's another clean sheet.
Great
So we've got
save.
to shout out Kelleher. Yeah.
But it was a really good save. Like you could see, not to dig out Flecken, who's not here anymore, but you could see Flecken conceding that. And I think that reinforces how Kelleher, in terms of pure shot stopping, is probably the best we've had.
Saved another penalty over the international break.
Yeah, we've said that, haven't we? That we can't question his shot stopping. And to be fair to him, bar 1 or 2 balls going across the 6-yard box, which I thought he should have collected, he did that most of the game yesterday.
Let's talk about Liverpool then. We have Nick on Twitter saying obvious one. It is obvious because we talk about this every time, but don't blame yourself for that because it's always in the running order. Will we be brave enough to stick to a 4-3-3? Which formation gives us the best chance to get at their very dodgy fullbacks? This is a really difficult one. And I've been umming and ahhing about it kind of ever since last night because all the noise about West Ham being so bad and us playing really well is that we should stick to this 4-3-3. I don't think he's going to do it. Do you guys think he's going to do it? I'd be very surprised if he sticks with it.
I'm still of a similar view to what I've always been. I think you've got to look at each game individually. We can play well with a back five. We have done it in the past. It's possible. The only thing with Liverpool, I do get the argument about the fullbacks, and I think whether it's a 5 or a 4, we need to find a way to try and exploit them because they have got weaknesses. So maybe that is something where you can look at this game as an individual and say maybe we try a back 4. But you also look at Liverpool's attacking players. Now, they've not been on the best run, but they still have such amazing options in that forward line. It's a little bit scary, like to see how they can come onto you. Even at the weekend when they lost to United, when they were behind and they started making changes in the second half and they had 4 or 5 attackers on towards the end, on another day, they score 2 or 3 of those and they win that game. So even if we're in a situation where we're 1-0 up, you can expect that from Liverpool. And honestly, I can't see them not scoring and probably winning the game, no matter whether it's a 4 or a 5. But do you think that potentially, if we're at our best, we will be slightly more solid with a 5? Then I think I would still sway towards that. But we've got to attack in a better way. Against City, we didn't attack well enough with about 5. But going back to like Chelsea this season, if we're just looking at games this season, I thought we did attack better with about 5. So, you can play well or badly, no matter whether it's a 4 or a 5. And we'll probably lose this game no matter what. But I still don't think that we should just be saying, it's working against West Ham, therefore we should play it against Liverpool, because it's a completely different game. It's going to be a completely different game at the weekend.
Craig, there's been so many people saying 100% stick to the back 4. We're better in a 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. What we said after the City game is that, if it's not working and we need a goal and we're only 1 down, then change it mid-game. He's not shown that he's going to do that. But I would still be in the camp of it's a free hit against Liverpool. It is a free hit, like in a similar way to what it was against City. If we, on the evidence that we have, if we look better in a 4, what do you think?
On the evidence that we have in hand is Liverpool have lost 4 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Van Dijk and Konate are not having a fantastic season, even at centre-back. We're talking about getting at their fullbacks. Kirkez has not been the signing that people thought he was going to be. And I can't even remember.
That's putting it lightly.
And I can't even remember who their right back is.
It's a
Conor
mixture.
Bradley at the moment.
Bradley, Szoboszlai. There's all 3 of them playing there.
Yeah. Konate and Van Dijk are there to be got at. Conor Bradley, let's say it's him. Kirkez are there to be got at. And yes, all right, they haven't been firing on all cylinders going forwards. But if they are there to be got at, which they are, in the same way that Manchester United were there to be got at, and we did, we can exploit their defence with pace. If we go for a back 4 and we go for 4-3-3, I've got a strong belief in that front 3 of Sharda, Dango, and Thiago that they could run them ragged. That they could. My concern is when we go to a back 5 this season, I feel like we've lost Damsgaard. In every single game we've gone to a back 5. We've completely lost him in the game. He's trying to pick up the midfielder that has flourished the most in a back 5 for us is Jordan Henderson, because he does the defensive work so well, and he'll be in the right place at the right time to pick the ball up and ping it forwards in the way that he has done multiple times this season. So it's one of those ones where you're saying it's a free hit. If it is a free hit, and Dan, you're saying Liverpool are going to win the game either way, no matter what, surely you go into this going, if we're going to lose this game, let's make them fucking work for this. We're going to try and if we're going to lose it because they're going to score goals, we got to go out there to try and outscore them, and we're not going to outscore them with 5 defenders on the pitch, plus Jordan Henderson, plus Vitaly Janelt when he comes on, plus Frank Onyeka when he wants to bring him on, plus Ethan Pinnock, plus Christopher Ayer, plus all the other. By that attitude, we'll end the pitch with just Thiago going forwards, and he'll be the one that does the running. If they're there, which they are, get at them.
I wouldn't stay like that, first of all. So, like, City game, for example, after an hour, we should have switched it up because we had an element of control in that game at one point.
But City are not. Liverpool are
They're
not
a different team. Yeah.
City and Liverpool are very different teams, and City are at the point where they're on an ascension and they're going back towards where they were. You know, Haaland is scoring lots of goals. Foden is involved, and then you've got Liverpool who are kind of on the decline. I've noticed on social media their fans are getting on the manager's back. The fans are getting on the players' backs, and if we can capitalize on that, yes, it'll be a game where we don't keep a clean sheet. Let's be completely honest. They're probably going to score, especially with the attacking prowess that they have. But they are defensively all over the place. And so many people can see that. And the concerning thing is, if we go into this game and Keith Andrews can't see that, which he did against United, and he saw that they were there to be got at, Liverpool right now are in a bit of a... tonight's going to be, or tomorrow, whenever it is going to be interesting because they play Frankfurt, I believe, in the Champions League. If they win this game, go to a back 5 because they'll be full of confidence and it'll be back up. If they lose this game, they're there to be go at them.
I don't think the team will see it as a free hit. Yes, we will probably lose, but that's just a fact based on if we played them 10 times, we'll probably lose about 8 of them, which is probably what's happened when we played Liverpool in the Premier League. But, and I agree, you have to still play in a way which increases your chances of winning because there is always a chance. And I think we will do that. But I do think we can attack Wells in a back 5. And we've shown that against City, obviously, we didn't do it well enough at all. Against Chelsea, I thought we did it a bit better. Mm-hmm. Damsgaard, when it comes to him, I think he's better when we're controlling the midfield and we have more territory and possession in midfield and he can get on the ball more. I don't think he's going to get on the ball as much in this game, no matter whether it's a 4 or a 5, because I think Liverpool will dominate that area of the pitch. So I think the next best thing to do is if you are going to go a bit more direct, if you have got that front 2, you've got to get Damsgaard close to them so he can be there for any knockdowns. Then you got Sharda running in behind, Thiago there as well, Damsgaard hopefully playing him in. I don't know. I feel like there is some value to trying to stop them from scoring too early on, to start a bit more cautious. And then if you do get to, half-time 0-0, then in the second half you can think, okay, let's open up a bit. Let's try and get the goal now. I think if you manage the games in chunks, that is a way also to win the game. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be the style people want to see. But I don't think we're going to get that style anyway, particularly.
Based on the fact that we haven't seen that at all this season from him when we have been losing games.
Yeah.
Man City is a prime example of us being 1-0 down, getting on top and not changing it to be able to attack them.
Yeah, well, that's a different problem, though. That's a different problem.
It is a different problem, and City are a different animal. We know that. But do you take a risk and go for the attacking start in which we want? As fans, I know what I want. I want us to get at them. And Dan, I can't imagine that you, in your heart of hearts, want us to go out there and defend the 1-0 loss.
I'd love a ball fest. No, but I think you start cautious, but then if we do go 1-0 down, and we have played an hour, then you go for it. That's what Keith Andrews did.
I think that's the big test. I would like to see a 4 from the start because I do think Liverpool are vulnerable. However, that's me thinking with my heart, but thinking with your head. If you look at the 2 of the 4 games that Liverpool have lost on the spin, one was against Palace, who started in a back 5. They had 29% possession in that game. One was against Man United, who started in a back 5 or a back 3, depending on how you want to think about it. There is a blueprint there, and Liverpool have been vulnerable in terms of transitional games where we're counter-attacking and stuff like that. The real test, as you mentioned, Craig, is that if it is tight, if it is 1-0 and we start in a 5 and he doesn't change it again, then he has to come in for a lot of criticism, because we criticised him for after the City game. He needed to change things. If he starts in a 5 and we're 1-0 down and it's 70 minutes and it's 80 minutes and it's 90 minutes and then he brings on Fabio Carvalho, then there's going to be some pelters for Andrews because they're there to be got at, like you say, Craig.
They are. They
I love it if we win with back 5.
I love it. Liverpool are there to be got at, and there is an opportunity for us to get a result here. Yeah, all right, we might not win this game because we know what Liverpool have going forwards. But in knowing what Liverpool have going forwards, we know what they're lacking defensively at the moment. And in having 4 shaky defenders who are a bit out of sorts at the moment, and just attacking them with Thiago, because when we've played as a 2, Kevin Schade is so hit and miss as well, because let's be real, he's going to probably favour Kevin Schade over Damsgaard here, is what we've really seen. He's been so hit and miss with the way that he's running at players. Last night was a prime example of how he didn't seem to have the confidence to want to attack them. You've got to... what feels like we need to counteract the balance of what Kevin Schade brings, which is sometimes not a huge amount of pace. Not pace, but press, to what Dango can do and to what Thiago can do. It makes sense to go for a 3 up front, so 4-3-3. And just, later in the game, I would rather see it the other way around, where rather than us be chasing the game and then try and make a change, which Keith Andrews doesn't seem to do. He doesn't really like an attacking change, is attack the game, have some success, and then go the other way and do what Thomas Frank used to do. Bring on Ben Mee so he can score an own goal or do not something fantastic. Bring on Janvier, bring on Julian Janvier, bring on 5. There'll be Aya there. I don't know if Pinnock's injured or what happened over international break. Was he even on the bench?
He was on the bench, I think,
yeah. Pinnock's there. Rico's there. Hickey, I don't know if Hickey's going to be back. Fingers crossed he will be for this weekend. Hopefully it was just one game, but we could see him. We got the defensive players to be able to make defensive changes the later the game goes on. I'd rather attack it and then defend than just defend and continue to defend when we're losing.
They will overwhelm us. If we make defensive change, if we get more defensive and we're winning, they will overwhelm us.
Hendo will do that defensive work. And that's what I was saying in regards to what he did yesterday as well, where because we was attacking them so much, he could sit in. And he could play as that extra defender if we needed him to as well. Because with Yarmo, we'll just run and run and run until he's taken off of the game ends. Damsgaard is the player that's going to pick the ball up and make something happen. Hendo can pick the ball up, spring those passes out, but he's going to be the one that brings that extra defensive solidarity to it. If we go for the back 4, which I think we should. Take a risk. Go for it. If it's a free hit, man, go and hit their back. You know what I mean?
I think it's a really interesting conversation. I'm well aware that we've gone over an hour, but as I said, I do. There's been a lot of chat about it, especially in the replies. Stick to the back 4. So let us know in the comment section what you think on that debate. Dan, what's your overall feeling going into it?
Back 5 and a long throw goal.
That honestly, 3 points would be massive, and I do think there is a chance, especially like the confidence that the squad will have gained after the performance last night. But it's not even. I was about to say, if he gets the lineup right, it's not even about that for me. It's about, can he affect the game with his substitutions? Because that's the one thing I've been really disappointed with Andrews about sort of since the start of the season, is that the subs have not been able to affect the game, or he's not been able to change the shape and really kind of take it to the next level. That's the most important thing for me. But yeah, boys, that was a far chirpy. I think that might be the chirpiest podcast we've done all season long.
I just want to say that after all the doomsdayers and things like that, people saying we're going to struggle, I believe that at this point this season, we have exactly the same number of points as we did last season. There
it is. Craig, what a lovely way to round up the podcast.
Please.
We'll be back on Thursday with a preview of the Liverpool game. I'm going to chat to Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Like I said, drop a comment down below with anything we talked about from today. Do we start in a back four or back five against Liverpool? Who impressed against West Ham? Just how good it was Igor Thiago? How good was Yehor Yarmoliuk? Let us know in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on the socials at the Eden Road on Twitter, at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Craig, Dan, an absolute pleasure. Up the bees.
Up the bees.